Hello, I'm FleuTV. Remember it? You don't have to. And today I'm going to be reading a story that a friend of mine sent me called The Sleeper, which is a Jeff the Killer rewrite. So shout out to CreepystoRie5 on Wattpad and Corby300 on Instagram for sending me this and also writing this. And without further ado, let's begin the story. Prologue. Eddie and Patty Graves moved to Ridgewood, Virginia in 1990, shortly after they got married. The little town was promising enough, and it seemed like the perfect place to start a family of their own. In 1992, they had their first and only biological son, Lou, who was a healthy baby boy and grew up to want to be a police officer just like his father, Eddie. Lou was around 14 years old when Patty and Eddie decided to adopt a child, since Patty could no longer have children due to a car accident she survived, which damaged her reproductive organs. So, the family looked into a faith-based organization. Since they were a religious family, the orphanage was called St. Augustine's Children's Home in Florida, which they adopted Jeffrey. They were told that Jeffrey was left at the front doors of the orphanage one night and had no known family or even legal last name. He was a mentally ill child, and despite being only a year younger than Lou, had the mentality of a young child. They suspected he had been abused due to multiple scars on his body. Patty and Eddie were hesitating at first, but they decided to take Jeffrey in, and soon enough Lou bonded with him, and he became a member of the Graves family. For the first few years, everything was perfect for the Graves family, but it wasn't until around the time where Lou and Jeff were in high school that things took a much darker turn. Jeff had a hard time at school, having been bullied relentlessly due to his mental condition, and while Patty and Eddie pressed the issue to the principal, she refused to do anything about it. Jason Cartwell, or JC as most people called him, was the son of one of the teachers at Ridgewood High School, so he basically got away with whatever he wanted to do. Well, the staff's lack of intervention proved to backfire, and one day, Jeff was confronted by JC in the bathroom, who proceeded to call him names. "Hey, retard! I'm gonna knock your dick in the gut, you fucking orphan bitch!" he said. Something that day finally triggered Jeff, whose childlike mind didn't understand right from wrong. So Jeff devised a plan to kill JC, and sure enough, he did. He stalked JC on his way back home, which he just so happened to walk through the woods back to his house, and Jeff snuck up behind him and beat him to death with a textbook over and over. The rest of the story is a bit complicated. Jeff was apprehended by the authorities, and since he was deemed unfit to live in society, he was placed in Tombstone Asylum. Lou was devastated to hear about this and pleaded with his parents to do something, but Eddie and Patty felt that this was for the best. They didn't want to put their only son in any kind of danger, and they didn't want Jeff living in the same house as them. Jeff's life in Tombstone could only be described as a living hell. He was harassed and bullied by the corrupt staff members there, which only further damaged him already his already fragile psyche. Lou would visit him every so often, but even he, the only person in this world who truly cared about him, began to see the damage done to him, and soon enough, he realized that Jeff was no longer the same. One night, Jeff was in the bathroom. He had broken a mirror, grabbed a shard of glass, and began carving a smile into his face. For what reason? No one knows. A nurse who was doing her nightly rounds happened to walk in on Jeff doing this, and when he looked at her, she panicked, and in self-defense, threw hydrochloric acid on his face, which permanently damaged his face. Jeff lunged at her with the glass shard, and in her last effort, the nurse stabbed Jeff in the side with a syringe, which stunned him while she could escape. While Jeff was recuperating, he was lucky enough that in the nurse's panic, she left his cell door wide open. So what did Jeff do? He snuck in to the security room and let all of the inmates out, who all began roaming the halls of the asylum, giving him a distraction to escape into the night. Jeff would then ditch his hospital attire in favor of a black mechanic shirt and a white hoodie and black boots, all of which he stole from a mechanic that he killed on his way back to Ridgewood. Jeff's mission was simple. He wanted to end everyone's suffering, and in his childlike mind, he thought killing them was the only way to do it. His carved smile would be the last thing any of his victims would see. Most of all, he wanted to find his way home to Lou so that he could make him smile too. Chapter 1. 5 years later. A layer of thick snow covered Ridgewood that night on Christmas Eve, as snow fell from the sky like acid rain. The Miller residence stood out from the other houses in the neighborhood, with its extravagant Christmas decorations, including red and green lights strung from the awning, a Christmas wreath hanging from the door, and an inflatable Santa Claus and reindeer decoration outside. The Millers were your typical middle-class family, consisting of a father, mother, daughter, and son. The father's name was Terry. The mother's name was Jessica. The daughter, who was the older of the two children, was named Katie. And the son, who was a little boy, was named Billy. Right now, the family was sound asleep, with the parents asleep in the master bedroom and two kids sleeping in their rooms. Billy had woken up that night in the middle of the night to get a glass of water, so he hopped out of bed and sneakily walked downstairs and could not wake his family or kid sister. As he made his way downstairs, the boy noticed something off. He could hear someone downstairs. His parents, perhaps? His sister? Mommy? Daddy? Sissy? He whispered. As he got into the kitchen, that's when he saw the figure, dressed in black boots, a black jumpsuit, a sleeveless white hoodie over the top, black gloves, and a black homemade ski mask with one eye hole where one green eye stared back at Billy. Billy was about to scream before the figure grabbed him and placed a rag with chlorophyll on it over the boy's mouth. Billy's screams were now muffled as the figure spoke. okay, little one? I am Jeffrey. It's okay. Just go to sleep. Billy slowly drifted to sleep, the chlorophyll knocking him out. Katie was awoken in the middle of the night by the sound of heavy footsteps coming up the stairs toward her bedroom. She quickly flicked on her lamp and glanced outside through the crack at the bottom of the door. The shadow of 2 black boots appeared under the doorway. She knew at this point that someone had broken into their home, and whoever it was didn't care about alerting her family. Katie quickly hid under her bed as she could hear the intruder jiggle the door handle and make his way inside. She could hear him creeping over to her bed, and from the corner of her eye, she could see that the man was gripping a hunting knife in his right hand. Fear was the only emotion that Katie could feel in that very moment, as the man pulled the covers away from the bed. He then, for whatever reason, began perusing through Katie's nightstand. Katie shot a glance at herself in the large mirror that she kept beside her nightstand, and she then realized that the intruder met her gaze, and she saw the reflection of his face, wearing a black ski mask with one green eye staring back at her. Even though he was wearing a mask, Katie could tell the man was smiling under the mask. Jeff flipped over the mattress and revealed Katie hiding underneath the bed frame. She let out a blood-curdling scream, and he grabbed her ankle and pulled her out from underneath. She kicked and screamed, yelling for her mom and dad, but it was no use, as Jeff straddled her and, raising the knife above his head, plunged it into her chest. The lights in the master bedroom turned on, and in came Mrs. Miller. Jessica screamed, and as the life drained out of Katie, she reached for her mother and went limp. Jeff then lunged at Jessica, pinning her to the ground. He wrapped his hands around her neck and began to strangle her to death when Kerry came out holding a shotgun. Jeff turned his attention to the father, who aimed the gun right at his temple. "Get the fuck out of my house or I'll blow your head clean off," he said. Jeff grabbed the business end of the shotgun, and as Kerry fired, Jeff aimed it at Jessica's head, which exploded her brains all over the floor. "No!" Kerry cried, dropping the gun and kneeling to the floor sobbing. Jeff looked at the father of the family in his anger and agony. He grabbed the shotgun off the ground and approached him, kneeling beside him. He said, "It will all be over soon." Kerry grabbed the shotgun, pointing it directly at his own forehead. "Do it!" he said with a pitiful sob. Jeff lifted Kerry's face to meet his gaze, tugging off the cloth mask to reveal his hideous face to the man. A face covered in burns and blisters, with one dead eye and a crudely cut smile from both ends of his lips to his ears. "It'll be okay," he said. "You'll I'll be with them too. With one slash of Jeff's knife to Terry's throat, he collapsed on the floor, choking on his own blood. Jeff left him there to die, and he made his way out. Before leaving, he looked over at the boy who was on the floor, still alive, but knocked out from the chlorophyll. Not yet, the voices in Jeff's head commanded him, and so he obeyed.